starting with Section 116, repealing the 1033 program. And you've probably heard about this program by which the United States military gives surplus equipment to local law enforcement. This is a program that started back in the 1990s as the war on drugs was sort of ramping up. It was decided that the best policy was to ramp up the drug war with military equipment. And so they started offering the sort of deal that you might see on a late night infomercial. It's all sorts of free stuff. Local law enforcement just has to pay for shipping. And that includes equipment like grenade launchers, mine-resistant armored troop carriers, all sorts of guns, ammo, explosives. They have hundreds and hundreds of different categories of things that it's free, just pay for shipping. Of course, there's no such thing as a free mine-resistant armored personnel carrier. One ultimately has to pay for this. And so another way to look at this is a big subsidy for arms manufacturers who sell their equipment to the U.S. military and gets paid for through our, was it this year, $768 billion defense budget, and then turn around and give these things away for free to local and state police departments. In general, this program has contributed to the militarization of the police. If I give my son a hammer, he's going to want to treat every problem like it was a nail. And as we have given away billions and billions of dollars of equipment to police departments, they have become more militarized. We've seen over the last 20 years, we've seen increases in the number of no-knock warrants, SWAT raids, and even the number of deaths by the police have all trended upwards in the last 20 years. And so if we want to build a better America that for peaceful ways to establish, to solve our problems and reduce the amount of police militarization, the thing to do is to repeal this program. In fact, a June 2020 survey found that a majority of Americans supported ending or repealing this program, with only 17% wanting to expand it. And so this year, the legislation is very simple with dealing with this program, because all it does is it strikes Chapter 153 of Title 10, the United States Code. In that chapter, it strikes Section 2576A and just wipes the 1033 program off the books. In the 2020 blueprint, we had proposed putting restrictions on it, limiting the types of guns and ammo and military equipment that could be sent to local police departments. But we left some exemptions for some things. Problem is that there's a couple of problems with that. One is it leaves the door open, and this is the door that's better closed. And it goes back to sort of the question of, well, why would the military be buying things that they didn't need, or why would they be giving away things that are are still useful? So as we look for ways to trim the military budget, one of the ways to do that is stop giving things away and instead use what they already have. The Section 116 of the Blueprint for a Better America will just repeal this program in its entirety. There was a little bit of debate this year in Congress about what to do with this program when the National Defense Authorization Act for 2022 came up for debate. For amendments that were proposed, one of which would have repealed the program, one which would have temporarily put it on hold, and then a couple that would have scaled back what sort of equipment would be allowed to go out. But the simplest, easiest solution is just to repeal this program completely. According to the ACLU, close to 10,000 jurisdictions have received over $7 billion worth of equipment over the last, since this program has been in effect. And it's important to note that not all of these jurisdictions were real. In 2017, the General Accountability Office, they did a sting operation. They invented a fake law enforcement agency, threw up a fake website, gave a fake address, and they started getting equipment from the Defense Department. And no program is going to be perfect. There's always going to be some problems, but when it comes to shipping out military grade equipment and weaponry, we need we should have really high standards for who gets those kind of things for free. Just pay shipping. And so instead of trying to clean up the program, instead of trying to trim it back, scale it back, let's just repeal it. And that's what this legislation does. A couple other things. I guess it's important to point out that this repeals the giving away of military surplus. They're still allowed to sell it. So if police departments decide that, really what they need is a mine-resistant armored personnel carrier, you could still buy a surplus one. But that would encourage police departments and other law enforcement agencies to, be a lot more mindful about the equipment that they were adding to their department. I guess I also want to point out that fire departments are under a different section. Nobody's complaining about the militarization of the fire department, and so the military can still send them surplus equipment for free, just pay shipping. And there's also another section of the law that allows the military to give away military animals, dogs, horses, mules, and donkeys, and that would still be in place under Section 116. So that's the gist of it. I mean, we've all seen over the last few years, especially, just the images, the pictures of militarized police on our streets, often for peaceful protests, and it just contributes to the sort of imagery that we're painting for our children of what's appropriate. And military equipment on our streets, I mean, that's the kind of thing you see in like, dictatorships or third world countries, or you see in North Korea. It's not something we need to be promoting here in America. Just as importantly, we don't need to promote the idea that a military solution, excessive violence is the way to solve conflicts. There are many examples, and we'll probably talk about them next week when we get into no-knock warrants, about how these kind of things just escalate situations between police and citizens, whereas it could be de-escalated. So the way to do that, again, is stop putting excess military equipment on American streets. And Mr. Next Chair, I guess that concludes my testimony for Section 116, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I have a few questions. You mentioned that currently they're just paying for shipping.
Yes.
By repealing this law, military could still sell the equipment. If police departments are already willing to put forward the cash to pay shipping, I mean, if you repeal this, but the military can still sell, I mean, could the military sell for just really, really low prices that effectively make the repeal meaningless in the first place?
That's a good question. I would have to check into that for you. I don't believe so. I think it's still you got to sell at a reasonable price, or there's a bidding process or something. Let me see if I can find that out for you.
Okay, yeah, I think there should be some kind of, if we're going to do it, let's do it, some kind of restriction.
Yeah.
But also, didn't President Obama end this program?
He scaled it. He put an executive hold on it and scaled it back. This was after the protests in Ferguson, and so yeah, he scaled this program back. But as we've talked about before, the issue with doing things by executive order is that the next executive can come along and undo it. Exactly what happened, and President Trump reinstated the program while he was in office.
So President Biden could put an executive order right now to suspend it, but it would not be permanent, correct?
That's correct. The proper Congress is the legislative branch, and so when it comes to policies like this, the proper course of action is for Congress to act. As we've talked about on qualified immunity and all sorts of things. And so that's the goal of the Blueprint for a Better America, is to force Congress to act on these issues, that they're resolved in a proper constitutional manner instead of just being tamped down through executive actions. So I pulled up the section of law, the section 2576 about the sale, and it doesn't really appear to say exactly how that process works, whether it's got to be at fair market value or anything like that. So off the top of my head, I can't tell you. That might possibly still be a loophole where they could sell things that dramatically reduce prices to local law enforcement. However, I guess, in my experience of working on, when the state and county level is when you actually have to start spending money versus just paying for shipping, people tend to scrutinize those things a little more closely. So a mine resistant armored personnel carrier that might go for, $1 million or whatever. If your city could buy it for 10% of the fair market value, the people who make up the budgets might, like, is this really the best use of $100,000? And so hopefully that would at least bring some more scrutiny. But yeah, so we could look a little more into that.